We're just going to start. I mean, Ryan, thank you for joining us on day one of CoinGeek Week. What are your thoughts initially so far?
Well, I guess my initial thoughts are, we're all sort of recovering from the split. So I look at it like people are optimistic. I see a lot of people that are basically convinced of the roadmap of SB. So basically scaling, right? Sticking with the original protocol and scaling on chain. And that's basically it. And scaling on chain means solving it technically. It means solving it in terms of actually creating real businesses that create real value for real customers that use on-chain transactions. That's what I see happening right now. So far it's great. I like watching the presentations. I'm very excited about all the work all these people are doing. So I'm very excited so far.
You had a slide that I really enjoyed that said, Bitcoin can solve. What did it say?
Well, you can solve every problem with Bitcoin. So the idea of this is, and this is something that we actually talked about a long time ago. We meaning like the Bitcoin community from years ago. And one of the many weird things that happened over time was a lot of the ideas and information were lost, thanks almost entirely due to the censorship and also just a lot of terrible misinformation that new people brought by doing things like creating tokens of no value that were just purely gambling tokens. So the idea is just that, first of all, Bitcoin is money. It is, as far as I'm concerned, a solved problem. This is sound money that does scale to the entire world if we make it happen. And once you have money, you can solve every other problem related to money by using money. Or I'll put it differently. Once you have Bitcoin, you can solve every problem related to Bitcoin by using Bitcoin. What that means is you can make businesses that earn Bitcoin. You can do things like the example I gave I'll give a different one because people can watch my talk. I'll give you a different example. How do you do things like scaling? So miners run full nodes, and what they do is they do two things that are hard. They mine, which means doing proof of work calculations, number one. Number two, they validate transactions and blocks. These are actually completely different functions. And in a good economy, people specialize, and they actually specialize into sort of smaller and smaller pieces of the economy. And specialization has a lot of benefits. Like basically you get really good at the one thing that you're doing. What miners are actually good at is hashing. That's it. They actually don't care so much about validating transactions. It's actually a different function. And what you can do is, in order to scale all the way, miners do not have to do both the hashing and the validation. You can create contracts between miners and validators. Validators don't actually exist yet, but this is an example of the way you can divide up the Bitcoin economy. And when I say that, I'm talking about the internals of Bitcoin, the miners, the wallets, and in the future, countless other products and services that are critical to the functioning of Bitcoin itself will actually be businesses that trade with each other with Bitcoin, and they pay each other with Bitcoin for these services. So the miners can actually have contracts with validators using smart contracts on Bitcoin that say something like, if you validate correctly, we pay you money. And if you screw it up, you don't get paid. So the miners can just hash, and they don't have to actually themselves validate transactions. They offload that onto a specialist that does the validation. Now, this disturbs a lot of the people that want everybody to be equal. They're like, no. Everybody needs to do everything. I need to make my own shirts and my own shoes, and I need to validate the world's transactions because everybody does everything. I think that's a terrible idea, and we know, if anybody knows anything about economics, specialization is a good thing. You don't want to do everything. You want to focus on your specialty, and you offload everything else on everybody else, and you pay for it, and you pay for it with Bitcoin. So
you actually first mentioned the smart contract validation idea over a year ago. You probably mentioned it before that, but it's interesting that there's still been. I think we actually talked about this a little bit with Craig. Is this there seems to be a lack of market solutions emerging for what appears to be a large opportunity for companies to do all of this secondary stuff outside of just hashing, right? It seems like we really haven't made any progress on companies emerging to solve those solutions.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly why. Because almost all the capital that went into the industry was misallocated capital. It was people buying shit coins that have no value. The only value, I shouldn't say it's literally zero because it had some value. The value was it's fun to gamble with. That's literally it. You look at these exchanges and Binance, I actually have a lot of respect for Binance as a company. I think they did a great job creating a new exchange. But the reality of what Binance is, it's a gambling platform. And it's really funny to me that it looks like a gambling platform. They made it that way because they understand their user base are not people that are actually investing in real companies. They're people that are gambling. That's it. That's what it is. So almost all the capital, this giant bubble that we saw, sort of leading up to last December in this January, was almost an entirely speculation/gambling driven misallocation of capital. I mean, it simply wasn't investing in any of the stuff that actually mattered. It was investing in all the wrong things. So a lot of that money's gone because it literally was just wasted on all the wrong things. That money's not coming back. What we need to do now is we need to scale on chain. We're going to scale SV. We're going to do experiments. And when I say we, I'm talking about sort of the entire SV ecosystem. So many of which I know, but I don't necessarily have a business relationship with these people. But the stress test people, in-chain, CoinGeek, and everybody else, we're going to actually prove to the world that you can scale on chain by doing giant blocks. We're going to do it technically, and we're going to do it with money from within the ecosystem because we're just going to prove that it's possible, first of all. Meanwhile, we create real businesses like Money Button, Handcash, Centbee, and so on that create real value for real people. And then we actually get real transactions on chain. So we solve all the technical challenges we need to by scaling on chain in a sort of real world, but artificial way because we're generating them ourselves. But we prove it technically. We solve all the technical challenges that we need to scale. And then meanwhile, we get adoption and we show to the world the right way to do this. The right way isn't shitcoin after shitcoin. We're actually going to bring Bitcoin to the entire world. We're actually going to execute on Satoshi's original vision, which is Bitcoin as world money. And the way we do that is on-chain scaling. So the next steps are clear. When we do this, as we scale on-chain, we increase the transaction volume radically. You know what happens? Like the guys I was just talking to downstairs, whose names I forget, but maybe if they watch this, they'll remember. Make an XPub index because that's an example of a real business. That's going to be really necessary. You can solve that problem for people. You can make it so that anybody can make a scalable wallet by just paying that service for the part that actually isn't the wallet feature. It's an infrastructure thing that is a business opportunity. They're going to make the XPub index that scalable wallets can use. Then companies like Handcash, Money Button, where we don't care about programming the XPub index, that's theirs. They're the specialists that create an XPub index that wallets can use. We will simply pay them the same way we pay AWS for servers, right? The same way we pay for whatever. We subscribe to a number of different services like currency conversion and things like that. We don't know, we're not experts at currency conversion. We offload that to an API. We're going to do that with everything. Every function that isn't our primary business, which is Money Button, we're focused on Money Button. That's it. We want to offload everything that we're not specialists on to all these other companies that don't yet exist. But as we scale, it creates new real business opportunities. These aren't shitcoins. These are real companies where you can invest and get actual equity in an actual business that will succeed along with the entire industry. So we're just going to do it correctly and show everybody else, how to do it.
I know you're about to give an awesome panel, being on a panel. I'm really looking forward to that. I want to get your final thoughts. Until yesterday, you were the most hated man in Bitcoin, but now it's been replaced by Unwriter. I would just want to get your general closing thoughts on, I thought his article was great, but what are your thoughts on the resolution of the Bitcoin Cash experiment?
Well, I completely agree with Unwriter. And I think that, I wrote my own article, but I didn't go as far as Unwriter did in criticizing ABC. And I'll just say that I completely agree with Unwriter. And for the audience listening to this, it's very irritating from our point of view that we are just completely dismissed by the ABC side. That you guys just think that we're just deluded, that we've been won over by a con man. This is not correct. We're not deluded. You don't even listen to the argument. So you should take Unwriter seriously. And when I say this, I may as well say some names, okay? People that I respect, okay? People like Jonald Fukeball, if you watch this. You should take him seriously. When you responded to Unwriter, you didn't actually respond to the points that he made. So go back in and reconsider these things because we are not crazy. This is Bitcoin. ABC are the ones that are making mistakes. This has nothing to do with Craig's personality. That's not why we're involved in SV. We're involved in SV because it is Bitcoin. And you can solve all these problems with Bitcoin, as I was saying earlier. It's a solved problem. We don't need to reinvent money. It's been solved. We need to scale it, and we need to get adoption. And this has nothing to do with Craig's personality. And it has nothing to do with things like Bitmain. When I had to make this very tough, unusual decision as CEO of my small startup company to actually go in the opposing direction of my lead investor, which, by the way, is the exact opposite of what everyone's accusing me of doing. Because yes, we raised money from InChain, but we raised more money from Bitmain. Bitmain was the lead investor, not InChain. And it comes, not only am I not getting money for picking SV, is the exact opposite. It comes at a giant cost because I'm tarnishing the relationship with my actual lead investor, which is Bitmain. So I'm not doing this because I'm crazy. I'm doing it because I have to pick the right option for my company, and that's SV. So, reconsider these points. When you guys calm down with your emotions and you realize this ABC goes off in a really weird direction where they're going to add Avalanche's pre-consensus. They're going to do things like decrease the block time. Watch this happen. No, they haven't announced decrease the block interval, but it's inevitable when you understand the direction they're going in. Of course, they're going to do this. They want to do it. It's going to make their system better. Whatever that is, it's not Bitcoin, and I'm not convinced it's going to work at scale. So listen to the actual arguments that we're making, okay? These are real arguments. When I read the dismissal, like people say, but you raised 500K from InChain. The only time I ever said we raised 500K from InChain, I also said we raised $1 million from Bitmain. If you neglect to mention that we raised $1 million from Bitmain, you are trying to mislead people, okay? Don't do that. You guys are letting your emotions control you, and you're not listening to the real substance of the arguments that we're making about why we're picking SV. So those are my closing thoughts, all right? That's a message to the ABC world that you guys have actually dismissed us because of your hatred of Craig. You need to go back and reconsider the arguments we're making because we are right.
Ryan, I love your passion all the time. You make so much damn sense. It's frustrating, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you, guys.
Looking forward to
Thank you.
Great. All right, thanks, guys.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys too.